You have spent approximately 99.9% of your existence as a species sleeping on something that would, by modern standards, be considered a torture device. We tend to view the history of human progress as a steady climb from the hard, cold ground toward the soft, plush sanctuary of the memory foam mattress. We assume that our ancestors slept on rocks and would only because they hadn't yet figured out how to stuff a bag with feathers. But that assumption is not just wrong. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human body actually works. If you could transport a hunter-gatherer from 50,000 years ago into your bedroom tonight, they likely wouldn't thank you for the cloud-like comfort of your pillow. They would wake up in the morning with a level of back pain and neck stiffness they've never experienced in their lives, feeling as though they'd been beaten. This is the paradox of the prehistoric bed. We look at a stone headrest from ancient Egypt or a ceramic block from the Song dynasty and see a primitive struggle for rest. In reality, those objects were precision-engineered survival tools designed to solve a very specific biological problem that you are currently ignoring. For hundreds of thousands of years, the rock wasn't the obstacle to a good night's sleep. It was the solution. You might assume that a hard surface is naturally hostile to the human frame, given how much we spend on orthopedic cushioning today. In reality, the human skeletal structure was never designed to be swaddled in softness for 8 hours a day. Think about the geometry of your own body. When you lie on your side, which is the most common sleeping position for humans and our primate relatives, there is a gaping void between the side of your skull and the surface of the ground. That void is exactly the width of your shoulder. If you leave that gap empty, gravity takes over. Your head drops 4 or 5 inches, torquing your cervical spine and putting immense pressure on the suboccipital muscles at the base of your skull. In a wilderness environment, waking up with a crick in your neck isn't just a minor annoyance that requires a couple of ibuprofen. It's a death sentence. It slows your reaction time, narrows your field of vision, and makes you a secondary target for predators. To solve this, our ancestors didn't need something soft, they needed something stable. They needed a structural lift that wouldn't compress or shift during the night. They needed a platform. This is why, when we look at the archaeological record, we don't see a progression toward softness. We see a global obsession with height and firmness. This demand for stability is etched into our very DNA, but you might think our ancestors were too busy surviving to worry about the finer points of neck alignment. However, the evidence suggests they were actually masters of domestic engineering. In 2020, a groundbreaking study published in the journal Science by archaeologist Lynn Wadley and her team changed everything we thought we knew about the prehistoric bedroom. At a site called Border Cave in the Libambo Mountains of South Africa, they uncovered fossilized layers of bedding dating back 200,000 years. This wasn't just a pile of leaves. It was a complex, multi-layered system. The base was made of broad-leafed grasses, but it was laid over a thick carpet of ash. This was a deliberate choice. The ash serves as a chemical barrier, a fine powder that clogs the breathing pores of ticks, bedbugs, and mites. But the most remarkable detail was what Wadley found woven into the top layer: bits of camphor leaves. Cryptocarya woodii is a plant still used today in traditional medicine because it contains insect-repelling compounds. These humans weren't just sleeping on the ground. They were creating chemically treated, bug-resistant, temperature-controlled sleeping pods. While these grass beds provided the foundation, they still left the problem of the shoulder gap. Some researchers argue that the earliest pillows weren't rocks at all, but our own arms. If you watch how great apes sleep, they often fold an arm under their head to provide that necessary lift. But as humans evolved wider shoulders and more specialized neck musculature to support our heavy, upright heads, the arm wasn't enough. We needed an external tool. But don't mistake this for a desire for luxury. In fact, the shift from using a rock to using a soft pillow is one of the most recent and radical experiments in human history. For the vast majority of our timeline, the rock remained the gold standard across almost every continent. Take the ancient Egyptians, for example. We often look at the treasures of King Tutankhamun and marvel at the gold and the chariots, but among the most vital items found in his tomb were his headrests, or wers. These weren't intended for the dead, they were the very objects he used in life. They consist of a curved, crescent-shaped top mounted on a vertical pedestal. Some were made of wood, others of ivory, and some of beautiful blue faience or solid stone. To a modern observer, they look like a neck-chopping block. But the Egyptians viewed them with a level of reverence we reserve for high-tech medical equipment. They even had a specific spell in the Book of the Dead, Spell 166, dedicated entirely to the headrest. It was meant to prevent the head of the deceased from being taken away. In the Egyptian mind, the head was the seat of the soul and the most vulnerable part of the body. Propping it up on a hard, unyielding stand wasn't about comfort in the way we define it. It was about protecting the heaven of the body. They believed that by lifting the head, they were mimicking the sun god Ra rising over the horizon. The rock was a spiritual and physical stabilizer. You might conclude that the Egyptians were simply traditionalists, stuck in their ways despite their wealth. On the contrary, their use of stone headrests was a brilliant adaptation to their environment. In a desert climate, heat is the enemy of sleep. A soft, stuffed pillow acts as an insulator, trapping body heat around your brain and neck, which can actually prevent you from entering deep sleep. The brain needs to drop its temperature by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate the sleep cycle. A stone or wooden headrest allows for 360-degree airflow around the head. It stays cool to the touch all night long. This same thermal logic applied thousands of miles away in China. During the Song dynasty, about 1,000 years ago, the pinnacle of sleep technology wasn't a silk cushion, it was a porcelain pillow. These were often hollow and could be filled with cool water or even aromatic herbs like mint or lavender. They were glazed to be perfectly smooth and were specifically shaped to support the neck while leaving the head relatively free. The Chinese called them cool pillows, and they were prized for their ability to maintain clear sight and calm spirit by preventing the head from overheating. But these ancient headrests served another practical purpose that we've completely forgotten in our era of daily showers and mirrors: hair maintenance. For most of history, an elaborate hairstyle was a sign of status and required hours of labor. You didn't just wash your hair every morning. You built it into an architectural masterpiece that was meant to last for days or weeks. A soft pillow would crush that effort in minutes. A hard headrest, by supporting only the neck, kept the head and its hair suspended in the air. In Japan, the takamakura or high pillow was used by samurai and geisha alike for exactly this reason. It was a wooden block with a small, firm cushion on top, just enough to cradle the neck while keeping the hair pristine. They chose the discomfort of the wood over the social catastrophe of messy hair. It was a trade-off that made perfect sense in a world where your appearance was your identity. Yet, this focus on hair and heat still doesn't explain the most jarring aspect of ancient sleep: the timing. It's easy to imagine a prehistoric human lying on a stone for 8 hours straight, but that image is a modern projection. In reality, the 8-hour sleep block is a very recent invention, a product of the Industrial Revolution and the light bulb. Before we could turn night into day with the flick of a switch, humans practiced what's known as biphasic or segmented sleep. As historian Roger E. Kirch famously documented in his book At Day's Close, people for centuries would go to bed shortly after dusk, sleep for about 4 hours, and then wake up. This wasn't insomnia, it was the watch. For an hour or two in the middle of the night, they would pray, talk, have sex, or tend to the fire. Then they would return to bed for a second sleep until dawn. This means they were never pinned to their hard bedding for a marathon session. The rock only had to support them in 4-hour bursts, with a long break in between to move, stretch, and reset the body. But there is a deeper, more primal reason why we stayed close to the hard earth, and it has nothing to do with physics or fashion. It has to do with fear. When you sleep, you are at your most vulnerable. Your senses are dampened, your muscles are paralyzed, and you are effectively a piece of meat lying in the dark. For 99% of human history, sleeping too deeply was an evolutionary mistake. If you were so comfortable that you didn't move for 8 hours, you were a sitting duck for any predator with a sense of smell. This is the foundation of the Sentinel hypothesis, a theory tested by researcher David Sampson of the University of Toronto. Sampson spent time with the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer groups on Earth. He found that in a group of 20 to 30 people, someone is awake virtually 100% of the time. The elders wake up early, the young stay up late. The natural variation in human sleep cycles creates a built-in security system. You might think that this sounds like a stressful way to live, but the Hadza don't suffer from the chronic insomnia that plagues the West. Their sleep is communal and flexible. And because they sleep on the ground with minimal padding, their bodies stay alert even in rest. There is a theory in evolutionary biology that the extreme comfort of our modern beds has actually broken our internal alarm systems. By creating a sensory vacuum, where it's perfectly dark, perfectly quiet, and perfectly soft, we have tricked our brains into a state of deep, uninterrupted slumber that our ancestors would have considered terrifyingly dangerous. When we do wake up in the middle of the night now, we panic. We call it a disorder. For an ancient human, waking up on your rock in the middle of the night wasn't a problem. It was a check-in. It was a moment to listen to the wind, smell the air for smoke or predators, and ensure the group was still safe. The hard surface helped facilitate this lighter, more vigilant form of rest. Nevertheless, the transition from stone to fluff wasn't just a matter of safety, it was a matter of chemistry. The modern pillow is a biological disaster area compared to the ancient rock. Think about what a pillow actually is: a porous, warm, damp sponge that collects dead skin cells, sweat, and oils. It is the perfect breeding ground for dust mites. In fact, studies have shown that after 2 years of use, up to 1/3 of the weight of a synthetic pillow can be made up of living and dead dust mites, their droppings, and shed human skin. An Egyptian stone headrest or a Chinese ceramic pillow, by contrast, is hypoallergenic. It can be wiped clean in seconds. It doesn't absorb the moisture of your breath or the oils of your skin. Our ancestors didn't have microscopes, but they understood the relationship between cleanliness and health. They knew that soft materials in a humid environment became heavy and foul. The rock was clean. The rock was permanent. So why did we change? Why did we trade the stability of the stone and the health of the hard surface for the sagging, mite-filled cushions we use today? The answer lies in the great softening of the 18th and 19th centuries. As the Industrial Revolution took hold, textile production exploded. Cotton and wool became cheap and abundant for the first time in history. At the same time, we moved indoors, away from the dirt and the predators. We replaced the communal fire with the private bedroom. We stopped being sentinels and started being laborers who needed to be recharged for the factory whistle. We demanded a sleep that was an escape from reality rather than a part of it. We began to associate hardness with poverty and softness with success. The pillow became a status symbol long before it became a health hazard. But the body remembers what the mind forgets. There is a reason why, when you have a truly bad back, the doctor often tells you to lie on the floor. There is a reason why firm mattresses are marketed as the premium choice for spinal health. We are trying to buy back the support that our ancestors got for free from a smooth river stone. We have created a world where our furniture is so soft that our muscles have forgotten how to hold our skeletons in place. We spend our days slumped in cushioned chairs and our nights collapsed into cushioned beds, and then we wonder why our core is weak and our necks are perpetually strained. The rock wasn't a sign of a primitive life. It was a sign of a body that was still in tune with its own structural requirements. However, the most unsettling realization isn't about the physics of the spine. It's about the biology of the face. There is a growing movement in dental and facial research, often associated with figures like Dr. Mike Mew, that suggests the way we sleep has literally changed the shape of our heads. Soft pillows allow the jaw to drop and the tongue to fall back, encouraging mouth breathing. This, over generations, leads to narrower faces, recessed jaws, and crowded teeth. Ancient skulls almost universally show perfect dental alignment and wide, robust palates. They didn't have orthodontists because they didn't need them. Their hard sleeping surfaces and active lifestyles kept their craniofacial structures under the kind of beneficial stress that guides proper growth. When you bury your face in a soft pillow tonight, you are participating in a multi-generational experiment that is slowly shrinking the human airway. But don't go out and grab a brick for your bed just yet. The transition back to ancestral sleep isn't something the modern body can do overnight. We have spent our entire lives being molded by soft surfaces. Our tendons have shortened, our connective tissues have adapted to the lack of pressure, and our skin has lost the toughness required to rest on wood or stone without bruising. We are, in a very real sense, the most fragile humans to ever exist. We have outsourced our structural integrity to the foam industry. And this brings us to a fundamental truth about human progress. Every time we solve a discomfort, we create a new dependency. We solved the discomfort of the hard ground, and in exchange, we gained chronic back pain, sleep apnea, and a host of postural deformities that were virtually unknown to our primitive ancestors. You might think that the story of the rock pillow is just a curious footnote in history. Did you know fact to share at a dinner party? But it's actually a mirror. It shows us that what we call comfort is often just a slow-motion form of decay. We have spent billions of dollars and centuries of effort trying to disappear into our beds, to reach a state of total sensory deprivation. We want to be floating in a void. But we are biological organisms, not ghosts. We evolved to be in constant conversation with the physical world, even when we are unconscious. The rock was a reminder of that world. It was a steady, unyielding point of contact that kept the spine straight and the mind alert. It was a tool for a version of humanity that was stronger, more resilient, and more connected to the reality of the earth than we can currently imagine. But here is the detail that truly reframes the entire timeline. Think back to those 200,000-year-old beds in Border Cave. When the researchers analyzed the ash underneath the grass, they found something even more specific. They found that the ash wasn't just old fire debris. It was a deliberate layer of burned bedding. Our ancestors would periodically burn their old beds to reset the chemical barrier and kill any lingering parasites before laying down a fresh layer. This means that 2,000 centuries ago, before we had wheels, before we had writing, before we had even left Africa in large numbers, we were already practicing a form of high-tech domestic hygiene. We were managing our environment with fire and chemistry and botanical knowledge. We weren't primitive people sleeping in the dirt. We were master engineers of rest. We understood the trade-offs of the physical world. We knew that life required support, and support required firmness. You might feel a sense of pity for the Egyptian laborer or the Chinese peasant resting their head on a block of stone. You might look at your own bed tonight with a sense of gratitude for the progress that brought you here. But you should consider the possibility that the pity is misplaced. They lived in a body that knew how to support itself. They woke up with a spine that was as straight as the day they were born. They slept with a vigilance that kept their families alive. They didn't need ergonomic chairs or orthopedic inserts because their entire world was an exercise in ergonomics. They didn't have a word for insomnia because sleep wasn't a performance they had to get right, it was a natural rhythm they participated in. The rock wasn't a punishment for being early in history. It was a reward for being in balance with biology. But this isn't just a lesson about the past, it's a warning about the future. As we move further into a world of virtual reality and haptic feedback, our physical environments are becoming even softer, even more buffered, even less real. We are losing the ability to interact with the hard edges of the world. We are becoming a species of soft tissues in a soft world, and the price of that softness is a slow, quiet collapse of our physical selves. We are trading our structural strength for a temporary feeling of ease, and we don't even realize the trade is happening. We think we are getting a better night's sleep, but we are actually just losing the ability to wake up. As you lie down tonight and settle your head into that cloud of polyester and down, remember that you are the exception to the rule. For nearly the entire history of the human race, the idea of what you are doing right now would be considered absurd. You are resting your most vital organ, your brain, on a fluctuating, unstable mass of fibers that provides zero structural feedback to your nervous system. You are breathing in the dust of 1,000 microscopic organisms while your neck muscles slowly lose their ability to hold your head high. You are comfortable, yes. But you are also drifting further away from the physical reality that built you. Here is the cold, undeniable fact that should haunt you as you drift off. Every morning when you wake up and have to stretch out the stiffness in your back, every time you reach for your phone to check the time because you can't trust your own internal clock, And every time you feel that dull ache at the base of your skull, you are feeling the ghost of the rock you abandoned. Your body is screaming for the support it was promised by 300,000 years of evolution, a support that your modern world has replaced with a lie made of foam. You are currently sleeping on a biological filter packed with the debris of your own skin, and your spine is slowly deforming to fit a shape that doesn't exist in nature. You might feel safe in your softness, but your skeleton knows the truth. You were built to stand on stone, and you were meant to sleep on it too. Your comfort isn't a luxury, it's a slow-motion injury that you pay for every single night. If you've ever wondered why the world feels so heavy when you wake up, now you know. It's because you spent the night trying to disappear into nothing, and your body is struggling to find its way back to the earth. If this deep dive into the hidden architecture of your own life made you look at your bedroom a little differently, then perhaps it's time to start asking what other comforts are actually holding you back. There is a whole world of ancient wisdom buried under our modern illusions, and we're just getting started uncovering it. What other primitive habits have we forgotten that might actually be the key to our survival? Let me know in the comments if you've ever tried sleeping without a pillow, or if you're now considering it. And if you want to keep peeling back the layers of the human story, you know what to do. Until next time, try to stay grounded.